So I want to talk to you about, because in that process of creating structure, sometimes we get stuck in old mindsets. We get stuck in, well, things haven't always worked out for me, or, I'm not where I want to be right now in my business, or I'm not where I want to be with my family. I'm not where I want to be in my health. I'm not where I want to be, personally, in all of those different things. And it's easy to get stuck there and never get in action. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today is getting out of the gap called unfair. I have spoke on this before in my podcast program that I do outside of business, but I had to go to the doctor yesterday, or telemed appointment, because some of you may know a little over a year ago, I ruptured my third disc in my neck and had to have surgery. That's what that little scar is. And it was horrible, excruciatingly painful. So yesterday I had to go for an appointment because I have kind of tweaked my neck again. And immediately, I go, oh no, I can't go through that again. So I, had an appointment. They put me on, some anti-inflammatories and stuff, and we'll do an x-ray soon if that doesn't help. But I was reminded of this blog that I wrote called The Gap of Unfair during that season. And I wanted to share it with you because going into your summer, I want you to get out of the gap called unfair so that you can be productive and that you can grow your business instead of it becoming stagnant. So what I want to say to you is that we need women who know who they are and the strength that they possess to step up in the world today. We need women who know who they are to start leading and to setting an example. We need you, the ladies that are on here, because I'm coming to you as someone from experience who knows what it's like to live in that prison of the gap called unfair. I have lived in that before. So many times you can see people on Zoom, you can see people at convention, you can see people on the stage, and you think they have it all together. But you don't know the pain they walk through to achieve and to become who they have become over time. So we can't become the leaders or the world changers, the ones who change and make history, unless we get out of our own way and stop trying to change everybody else and realize that it's us sometimes are the ones that need to change. And we need to allow God to change and grow us in our life. So I want to share with you a scripture that I absolutely love. It's Matthew 6:6. It says, here's what I want you to do. This is how I start my morning. So I just want to share that with you. Here's what I want you to do. Find a quiet, secluded place so you won't be tempted to role play before God. This is the Message Bible. It's real plain text, and that's how I need. So it says, don't, be tempted to role play before God. It says, just be there as simply and honestly as you can manage, and the focus will shift from you to God, and you will begin to sense His grace. I think I cannot stress enough that one way to stay out of the gap called unfair is to have a heart of gratitude, to have a heart that is thankful and grateful for what God has done for you, for what you have, and all of those things. Start the day out with gratitude. But have you ever been stuck? Have you ever been stuck in that place, stuck at a pain point, but still doing life in a way that gives the impression that everything is okay? I am the queen of that. If going through something, but always wanting everybody to think that I'm totally fine. See, I find comfort in the fact that God never promised us a fair world. He never promised that to us. In fact, He said that in this godless world, you will continue to experience difficulties, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So what He's saying there is that we can overcome, we can do hard things. Sometimes life gets hard, but we can do hard things, right? And so part of our motto is the obstacle can be the way. And so that's so true. But many of you on here who have followed us or followed me know that God radically healed me of leukemia. And just give a shout out, because I never pass up a moment to give a testimony. Next Monday will be 4 years cancer free. 4 years since God healed me of cancer. So I give God the praise and all the glory for that, because it was a miraculous healing. But I've experienced that most beautiful thing of healing and that gift from God And breaking fear, overcoming obstacles, conquering the lies of the enemy is something that I strive for in my own life, but also I strive to help other people. I was just at a doctor's appointment, and the technician that was working with me literally, you carry what is inside of you no matter where you go, and it will begin to spill out. And this technician just began to share with me the struggle that she was having. And right there, I was able to take hands with her and pray with her and just be there, because we are called to be hope dealers. We are called to be people who bring light into dark situations. But after God healed me of COVID, or after God healed me of leukemia, COVID hit the world. And that changed everything. It caused everything to get real messy. Life turned upside down. We had to adapt to a new way of living. Everything got more complicated because I realized in that season, I woke up one morning in the changing of the seasons, and I had the most excruciating pain in my neck that I could ever imagine. I honestly thought my neck had broke. I don't know what that feels like for your neck to break, but I felt like my neck broke. And I was literally in tears, and I couldn't move. I couldn't hardly breathe. And I called my neurosurgeon, who sent me in for an MRI, and they found that my third disc, the third surgery, my third disc was bulging, and the previous disc that had been repaired, the fusion had failed. And in that moment, I was just in panic, and I began, going to physical therapy. They put me on steroids, all of this stuff to try to help. But during that time, I was in so much pain. And during those months of that debilitating pain, we experienced so much loss. We experienced the loss of my beautiful mother-in-law. My brother-in-law had a cardiac arrest, heart attack, sudden death. And, they brought him back, and he's still in his recovery season and his healing season, this much time later. But during that time, we signed a new book contract, and our daughter started her senior year of high school. Our son and beautiful daughter-in-law and grandsons moved here from California to Texas. We bought a ranch, remodeled a ranch, sold a ranch, and bought an estate. And all of that during this debilitating pain, it's like a blur. Like, I don't even remember most of it. Have you ever been in those seasons that life is happening so fast, and there's trauma, there's discouragement, there's all of this stuff, but yet there's other good things happening and everything, and it just becomes a blur. But Abby finally got her driver's license at 18 years old because, well, COVID. And, all of these things that were happening, we continued to travel and speak. We continued to grow our business, all of those things. But if you followed me on social media during that time, everything just appeared to be great. Everything appeared like everything was fine, because it's amazing how when we're going through things, we can put on a mask and a facade. All the while we're in a dark place. It's image management versus authentic living. We just put on that face. But I just want to be real with you, because I think sometimes we see people who have successful businesses. We see Westland, we see some of the other speakers, and we think it's because they don't know what I'm walking through. They can accomplish that because they're not walking through what I walked through. But I just want to be real today, because all through that season, I was miserable. I showed up on trainings. I did all the things. I was loaded up on pain medicine. I did all the things. I was barely clinging on at times because there was so much pain behind my smile that it was hard to force it. And that severe debilitating pain that I was facing in my neck, my back, my shoulders, it was difficult in that time because the disc was pressing on the nerve that controls your breathing and everything. It was difficult to even catch a breath at times. And it started becoming crippling. Just walking, sitting, talking, just doing life became very painful and difficult. And I hate to admit it, but during that season, I kind of withdrew from social gatherings, from family events and everything, because I didn't know how to cope with that level of pain. And all through that time, I was dealing with the physical pain, but the emotional pain started to, get to me, because I started thinking, God, life is not fair. This is not fair. And I think some of you probably feel that way today. Life has not been fair to you. And it's time for us to move out of that place of unfair, that gap that we get caught in, that life is unfair, because the physical pain that I was battling during that time was horrible, but then the emotional pain came in that began to dictate my every emotion, my every movement, my everything that I was doing. Every day, my body, my mind, my heart screamed, this is not fair. I mean, I was at one point, I said, God, you healed me of cancer, and this is going to take me out. And so I thought, how could this be what's going to take me out? I survived cancer, and so sometimes we get so caught up and we can't see past our pain point. And so finally I went for another MRI, and they found that the disc that had ruptured was completely bone on bone and was actually protruding into my spinal cord, which became critical. And they had to rush me into surgery and to get that taken care of, so I wouldn't be paralyzed, or so I couldn't breathe, or those sorts of things. So it became critical. So that October, I went in to have my third disc surgery, and during the recovery time after the surgery, completely pain-free. I mean, it was just like, oh my goodness, after the surgery. But during that recovery time, I was laying in bed one morning and I was feeling sorry for myself. Have you ever felt sorry for yourself? Have you ever had just a little pity party? I don't know about you, but I turned my pity party into the biggest gala that has ever happened. Okay. I don't do anything halfway. And if I'm going to have a pity party, it's going to be massive. And so I was having that pity party that morning in bed. Life had passed me by. I had been through this. I'm laying in bed. I can't get anything accomplished. I can't get up and walk around hardly. I'm doing all of these things. And so I began to feel sorry for me. And I couldn't see past that current pain point and circumstances. And a few weeks after the surgery, there was a shift that took place in my life. And I remember one morning I woke up and I was actually like, oh, wow, I can get up, I can turn my head a little bit. And I looked out the window of my bedroom, and I had missed an entire season. When I went into my pain cave, it was spring. And that morning I woke up and looked out my mirror, it was fall. And I realized I had literally lost an entire season of my life in my pain cave, in the gap called unfair, and feeling sorry for myself. And I looked at that moment and I realized that I had pushed through, I had smiled, I had fought, but missed that entire season of my life. I had camped out in the gap called unfair too long, and I missed out on life. I realized as I looked through all the photoshopped and the highlight reels of social media that I had posted, and I realized something during my pain, that a lot of life happened during my pain. But guess what? I was still here. I was still standing. I wasn't forgotten. I wasn't lost. I wasn't abandoned. I wasn't alone. I had survived. Regardless of the pain that I went through, I survived. And the problem is that during our seasons of pain, it's so easy to change our address in our life to that where our pain resides, and take up permanent residence in the gap called unfair. Can I just be honest with you? For some of you who are sitting there thinking, yeah, that's me. I mean, life is unfair. Can I tell you that no good emerges from the gap called unfair? That if you stay there, no good is going to come from it. Because when we feel like we've been treated unfairly, we start living in a place of discouragement, fear, anxiety, hopelessness, selfishness, and guess what? Narcissism. All we think about is us. All we think about is what's going on with us, always viewing life through the pain that we're experiencing, holding everyone else hostage to the pain of our life and the pain of our past. And that's not fair to them. And so that particular day, as the seasons were changing, I decided I was going to change that day. This was my day to change. I had to change my perspective, because it matters how we view situations, matters in how we react and operate in life. And see, I get it. Pain is real. I'm not discounting that. Pain is real. Discouragement, disappointments are real. Tragedy is real. But can I also be honest with you and say, so is faith, so is hope, so is healing, so is God's love and his grace. So just as real as tragedy is, God's love and his grace is just as real. And he can cover that. Because I'm here to tell you, I'm still recovering 2 years later. I just hit a milestone on the Peloton bike, getting back to where I was pre-ruptured disc. I'm still recovering. I still had an appointment yesterday, still dealing with some of the issues, but I choose not to live in that pain. I choose not to live there because I learned a valuable lesson again in my life, that I understand that peace, joy, purpose, clear vision, all of those things are a daily choice. Isaiah 26:3 tells us that he will give perfect peace to those whose minds are steadfast, to those who trust him. Can I tell you, it's time to activate your faith today? It's a choice to walk in faith. It's a choice to walk in trust, because sometimes God will give, I want y'all to listen to this. Sometimes God will give you a promise, but he doesn't give you the process. But we live our lives thinking that we have to have the process in order to remain faithful to our promises. Did you get that? We feel like we have to have the process in order to remain faithful to the promise. But what we really need is to activate faith, because you know what, God gives us gifts of the Spirit, and faith is one of those gifts. But can I tell you that faith is the only gift that activates all of the other gifts in your life. And so you have to have faith to activate action in your life. Because I realized that, you know, during that time, here's what I learned, and I'm going to close up here in just a second because I want to give the other ladies plenty of time. But what I realized is, before I went in to have that surgery, it was my third surgery, disc surgery, 3 discs. I've got metal plates, you know, all that stuff in my neck. So my neurosurgeon requires every patient who has had like this many surgeries for the same thing to go in for a psych eval. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little scared what they were gonna find. And they require you to go in for a psych eval. And I was a little offended too, like, really? I've got life together, you know? So it came out in my psych eval, no surprise, that number one, I have real control issues. So I have a need to be in control at all time. And I also have a need to make everyone think that I'm okay. So that was no surprise to me, no surprise to my family. And so, but one thing they discussed was, another thing was that it is very common to have carryover anxiety when you have gone through this type of surgery so many times, or any kind of trauma over and over for the same thing. And when they said that to me and they asked me, do you feel like that's, no, that's not me. I don't have any carryover anxiety. I'm ready. Let's just do the surgery. I'm good to go. But in fact, I did have carryover anxiety. And I realized that I had that I was afraid. And to be honest, still, like, I mean, here I am 2 years out, have a neck problem. Immediately I think, oh, that's going to fail. And so we live in that carryover anxiety. And my doctor wanted to do that psych eval to ensure that I was going into this with understanding that there could still be issues. There could still be, all the pain might not be gone. It may not correct everything. He wanted me to be in the best mental state to be able to cope with and to handle whatever the outcome was of this surgery. And so it came out during that about, you know, all of the different things that we did, but that carryover anxiety, it will cause you to live in a cycle of your life, always waiting for the next tragedy, always waiting for the next disappointment, the next failure. But can I tell you, you can't live like that. I had to understand, I had to start changing the way my mind thought in expecting the next victory, expecting the next success, expecting the next adventure in my life, expecting to grow and to spread my wings and to dream bigger dreams than I had ever done before. See, we have to change our toxic mindsets that are in our lives. Don't get stuck in that gap. Don't quit. Change your address today and move. out of that. Don't choose to live in that season of pain. Turn the page, start a new chapter. Don't cling to yesterday's failures, yesterday's tragedies, but embrace today and tomorrow. If you want change in your life this year, you've got to determine that you are going to be the change. That look in the mirror, that's where you start. Our issues do not define us. They reveal us and they equip us. What is inside of you will come out. You know, our family loves Broadway plays, but we also love history. So we went and saw the Broadway play Hamilton. And I loved it because at the end of the play, one of the songs that was the last song of the play was, "You don't get to decide who tells your story." And that hit so hard when I heard that, because in that moment, I realized that the choices that we make now and how we react and treat others during our seasons of pain, during all of those things, and how we use the gifts that we are given will determine how our story is told. See, we all have difficulties. We all have those things, but how is this going to play out? Stop the cycle. You weren't meant to struggle. You were meant to dig deeper, reach and grow and flourish. So here's what I do. I start with gratitude. I told you that. So I start with gratitude, and then I start to dream again, dreaming in strategy, not just theory. Habakkuk 2 says, write the vision down and make it plain so that others can run with it, because a dream without a plan is just a hallucination. Stop wasting energy and time on people who drain, exhaust, frustrate, and fundamentally misunderstand you. Stop apologizing for outgrowing people who choose not to grow with you. Can you do that? Stop apologizing for your success. Start thinking on the right things. Develop an abundant mindset, because a scarcity mindset just thinks about what I can get. But an abundant mindset understands that when I give, when I help others, that is the most fulfilling place that I can be. Stop doing less than you promised. Show up for yourself. Be who you say that you're going to be. Stop trying to live up to expectations of your old self. You don't owe anything to that version of who you used to be. Don't bring yesterday's disappointments into today's appointments. And can I tell you something I had to learn the hard way? Is stop using being busy as a status symbol, because it doesn't make us look successful and put together. It makes us look like someone who doesn't know how to manage their time. We can't stay in the gap called in fear. And I'm wrapping up right now. You can start over. If you need to start over today, start over. If you need to throw something out that's not working, just throw it out. Reset. If you're waiting for someone to help you, save you, create for you the life that you want, then take a deep breath, walk into your bathroom and look in the mirror. She's the one. She's the one that needs to start over and start fresh. Change the script, write a better story for generations to come. We have a sign in our home, and I've told you, so together they built a life they could love. We have to build it in our faith and in our actions. Because on your worst day, remember that you have survived 100% of your worst days. Will the history books tell of a generation of women who would rise up and be champions, who would awaken to hope, freedom, joy, peace in order to link arms with other women to change the world? That's what I want to ask you today. And the last thing I'm going to say is today, I want to be a voice of encouragement to you, to let you know you can go forward, you can succeed, you can excel, you can overcome, but also become so fierce about your dreams that eventually you will not remember the coward inside of you that once hid from the freedom that you're now pursuing. Go out, get up, dress up, show up, and grow up. And that's what I want to tell you today. So I hope that helped everyone. I know I went over, but this was just burning deep inside of me, because going into this summer season, we can choose to go into it with the right heart, the right mind, gratitude, overcoming defeat, overcoming discouragement, and getting out of the gap called unfair so that we can be fully present with our families, fully present with our business, fully present for ourselves, showing up and being who God called us to be. So that's all I had to say today. So thank you for